So as the days go by, it looks like more news is coming from Camp Xbox, and it looks like there are more changes and more core changes to studios as it's going on. We're going to jump right in because a lot of this is some of it is really good, some of it is really bad, and some of it is somewhere in the middle. So as we can see here from Rebs Gaming, studio design director Josh Sawyer, Fallout Vegas lead designer, everyone kind of knows who he is. Made one of the best Fallout games of all time with New Vegas. Everyone's been asking for a New Vegas 2. This could be that moment where New Vegas 2 is being worked on. Will lead the new Fallout title, and Obsidian will work with Bethesda Game Studios on the project, which is part of Xbox CEO Asher Sharma's plan to invest more in the company's biggest franchises. It's very clear right now that whatever Asher Sharma is doing, she's done with the small fry. She just wants the biggest games to be at the center of Xbox. And so those passion projects that were filling up Game Pass and doing whatever they were doing and really not making any money, and well, some of them were burning money, as we're going to get to, especially with the news from Everwild. Well, those days are gone, and Microsoft is done investing in those projects. They want to see returns. And as you can see from here, breaking, Jason Schreier just reported that Obsidian laid off a quarter of its staff, cancelled the sequel to Avowed, and is now working on a new Fallout game. As you can see from here, breaking, Obsidian Entertainment is making a big pivot. Now, Obsidian was working on a number of projects, and with 25% of their studio having been deleted, well, some of those projects probably won't see the light of day. As part of the Xbox restructuring, it has laid off a quarter of its staff, cancelled the planned sequel to Avowed. Now, that's a big one. I don't know why they were doing a sequel to Avowed. I don't know if the game ended on a cliffhanger. I still haven't finished it. However, I do know that Avowed was not received well. It had a lot of problems. People were complaining about all sorts of things, down to the silliest of things, that you can't kill wild, that you can't, slaughter wildlife. It was silly, but it got absolutely cremated. And in terms of sales, I don't believe it did very well either, and is now beginning work on a new Fallout game, according to the people familiar with the plans. So, this is actually some good and bad news, I guess. For those of you that were looking forward to a sequel to Avowed, that's probably never going to happen. So, enjoy Avowed for what it is. Right now, they're working on the bigger titles like the Fallout series, and with Season 3 coming next year, I believe, they're probably going to want to have something ready in time for then. I don't think this specific title is going to be ready by then, but they'll probably have something else. Maybe even Fallout 3 Remastered, right? And as you can see here from Hazardor Gaming, Bloomberg, Obsidian Entertainment cancels Avowed sequel for new Fallout title led by Josh Sawyer. So a lot of eyes are going to be on this because Fallout New Vegas has been, regarded as one of the best Fallout games out there. Everyone that's played Fallout loves New Vegas. So, can he recreate the win that he did with New Vegas? This is assuming it is New Vegas, right? But come on, what is it going to be? Fallout 5? I think Bethesda themselves internally will be working on that. I think this is more like, hey, this project is something that a lot of people loved, so it's highly possible that it could be a New Vegas too. Of course, the news doesn't really end there. It looks like Asher Sharma is doubling down on Xbox exclusives. In fact, she's now realized that everything that Xbox and Phil and Sarah and Satya were doing previously was to the detriment of Xbox. Xbox is where your core revenue comes from. You have a healthy console, you have a healthy business. And therefore, more focus now, in fact, all focus is going to be directed to the console. But as you can see from Bloomberg here, it says while big multiplayer games will still be available on all major platforms, which is kind of understandable because you want to get the widest reach for those multiplayer games, Xbox will make more of its best titles exclusive to Xbox, so gamers have a reason to buy its console. So what this is telling me, Fallout, Elder Scrolls are all going to be console exclusive. They will not be on other platforms, which is exactly the type of attitude you wanted when they had all those deliverable games that Phil decided to port over to PlayStation. In 2024, they had an amazing lineup of games. Insane! And they announced all of them to PlayStation, and it blows your mind. And yet now they're realizing that the console is where the main business is. And if we're looking at this over here, sorry for the all white, it is what the website is, unfortunately. I've just highlighted some of the areas that are important because the rest of it is stuff that we've already read about and gone through. The unit's new plan centers on returning focus to its flagship Xbox console, which represents 80% of its business. So, no matter which way you're looking at it, whether it's through Game Pass or through unit sales, the console is 80%, the PC is 20%. So, you want to focus on that 80% of where the money is. And that is something that got lost in transition with the previous administration. I'm not saying Phil Spencer did a bad job or Phil Spencer is a bad manager, but somewhere along the line, either he couldn't put his foot down and say no, or other things were going on because Phil was always about Xbox. He was always about pushing Xbox. Sure, Game Pass was his baby, but Xbox was his love child and he loved that brand. So to see it turn up the way it did, I can't imagine this is what he wanted. Funneling its content budget toward high growth areas such as the Minecraft game and stepping away from smaller studios, it is also moving from a decentralized studio model to a more centralized one and will strip out management layers. So what this actually means is that previously these studios, instead of like working fully collaboratively with each other, they still acted as individual studios and not really utilizing each other's strengths. What is happening now with, at least this is what it is in theory, those layoffs that are happening, those skill sets are available in other areas of the business. And so what's happening is they're saying, right, if you need that skill set, this studio has it. You call on them and they will come and support you. And that's how it's going to work. You're going to have a lot more collaborative efforts happening with these studios as they go along, which is honestly how it should have been working in the first place. Turning around Xbox will take time, Sharma said. She noted that executives are experimenting with new business models for hardware, including expanding consumer programs like buy now, pay later, financing to lower the barrier to entry, buy now, pay over 12 months interest free, that sort of thing, and moving away from a strict closed system. She also said Xbox must be available on mobile and PC to meet players where they are. And she's specific with mobile and PC and not other consoles, which means the days of these games, the bigger games going to other platforms, is over. Future titles will remain as a console exclusive for Xbox, and she is hoping that she can revitalize the core of the Xbox platform and bring back what made Xbox great and get people falling in love with the Xbox console again. As she says here, I think our core has to be healthy, and that will be necessary but not sufficient, she said. Being healthy alone is good, but it's not the only factors that need to be working here. So it's interesting to see how the complete dynamic, like Xbox is changing entirely from the gung ho third party. It's insane how much it's changing, and it's all starting with this 100 days. Now we do have some more bad news, and honestly, I really feel for the people at id Software. It's gone from 95 let go employees to now 136 employees have been laid off at id Software, a large majority of the studio. Now, Doom the Dark Ages just did not sell. It didn't sell on PC, it didn't sell on PlayStation, it didn't sell on Xbox, and I don't care how much Nibs wants to cry on social media that Game Pass is the problem. You have hundreds of millions of users on PC. I'm not going to even say 2 billion here, right? But you have hundreds of millions of users on PC that could have bought it. You've got 100 million on PlayStation that could have bought it. And you're going to blame a platform with 30 million? Really? You're going to blame a platform with 30 million? The game just didn't work. It didn't, attract the players. They tried something different. And this is what I was saying in my stream the other day. Sometimes doing something different can be really risky. Black Ops 7 is a prime example of this. It may hit and resonate with some people, but clearly this version of the game, which people are saying is slower, did not resonate. And that's a problem because if it didn't resonate with the media, if it didn't resonate with the players, it's not going to sell. And all you need is a word of mouth, and that studio is gone. We've been saying that studios are one game away from being shut down. It doesn't matter how big or small you are, what your reputation is, that rule applies to everyone. But I still feel that what's happening here with id is almost, catastrophic. Now, Winter Shoulder over here says Bethesda quotes Bethesda will now be laser focused on Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake. Insane to do that to id Software and their engine while still wanting to focus on IPs like Doom. What's the leftover team even going to do with so much talent gone? Now, he's got a point here. Like, I get it, Doom failed on gargantuan proportions, and that's really disappointing to see. But the reality is, it did fail. And as I said, no matter the studio, you're always one game away from being closed down. And that's been the motto for the games industry for quite some time. You can look at Marathon, which is on its last legs. You can look at Concord, which has disappeared. Fair Games probably is going to have the same fate. Honestly, if Microsoft hadn't sold Double Fine with the state that Keeper and Kiln came out to, they probably would have had the same fate. Compulsion Games, having spent 100 million on the game and getting very little in return, like these companies are okay with you spending the money, but they want money back. And look at Everwild. I said I was going to get back to that at a later point. From what I've heard, was Everwild started pre-production in 2014. It was in development for 11 years and it was nowhere near ready and had spent over 100 million on a game that probably should have been somewhere in the region of about 40, 50 million and taken a fraction of that time it took. So clearly there was a lot of problems happening there. And, the blame could be pointed at Phil, the blame could be pointed at Rare, the blame could be pointed all over the place. But the reality is there was a fundamental problem there, and shutting that game down at that point probably made a lot more sense. Cutting their losses and just writing it off. It's unfortunate because that also led to layoffs, which sucks, right? I'm never going to advocate for layoffs. I never will. Even if they're necessary, I never will, right? But I do believe that what's happening here with id is because of Microsoft's push to Unreal Engine. And that is what they're banking on. They want Unreal Engine to be the base platform. I do believe it's because of Unreal Engine. Now, Machine Games does have id Tech Engine experience, so they will probably be the ones supporting the remaining staff at id Software to continue with projects like Doom and Quake, which I'm guessing Microsoft believes doesn't need a huge team in order to do. But the one thing that's happening here, no matter what the team is that's making the game, it's never going to be solely built by that one team anymore. Instead of it being a fractured organization, it is going to become one organization and everyone will be working with everyone. Here's an analogy for you to make it a bit more clear. Right now, you've got 9 different buildings around, let's just say London, right? You've got one in north, northeast, south, etc. What they're doing is saying, right, we're getting all of those people and we're going to put them into one building on one floor. So if you need support, you just go over to that person and say, hey, I need this support. Can you come and sort me out? Now, that's something that the company I used to work for did, because they were scattered around in 5 different locations. They came together, and it actually did work, and it did increase collaboration a metric ton. But that being said, will it work in this situation? This is what Microsoft is banking on, because if it works, it's going to mean a leaner, more agile working environment, and definitely something that will push projects forward a lot faster, especially when you're all working as one. You no longer need so many layers of management because you're all under one roof. I mean, that's the analogy anyway, and it looks like that's where they're going. It still sucks though, man. I don't think id Software, after one failed game, deserved this. Doom 2016, I believe it was, Eternal, you know, they made 3 great games. Sure, Dark Ages was a dud, but I don't think they deserve this after one dud. Now, obviously, there's bigger organizational issues going on here, but I still don't think that they deserve this. And as you can see here, Wario as well. 136 workers were laid off at id Software, 22 laid off at Bethesda Game Studios office in Austin. And so that's where we have it right now. So we did start off with some good news. Obsidian is working on Fallout. Avowed 2 is pretty much gone. Fallout New Vegas could be potentially the new game that's coming. But one thing that we do know now is that with Asher Sharma's new push, Xbox exclusives are coming back. Will it be enough to sway the tide of battle? Who knows? I'll tell you what will be enough to sway the tide of battle. Wait until November. Don't say anything about physical discs. And then when the Helix launches, just showcase that shiny little slide that shows a disc drive available built into the Helix. That will win you a lot of people. Or at least the 15% that's now complaining at Sony. Easy win if you ask me. So if you have enjoyed this content, do consider leaving a like, subscribe, hitting that bell to stay up to date with all content I release. And if you can, please do leave a hype. It really helps with the channel growth. We are getting close to that 8,500, which is insane. We could potentially hit 9,000 by the end of the year, maybe. That's, a revised goal, but hopefully we can hit that 10,000 goal, which is what I'm aiming for. Right, folks, that's it. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about what's going on at Xbox, and I will see you in the next one. Remain legend.